Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. IRS to mail special letter to estimated 9 million non-filers urging them to claim economic impact payment by October 15th on IRS.gov, IRS.gov, IR 2020-203, September 8th, 2020, Washington. Later this month, the Internal Revenue Service will start mailing letters to roughly 9 million Americans who typically don't file federal income tax returns who may be eligible for but have not registered to claim an economic impact payment. The letters will urge recipients to register at IRS.gov by October 15th in order to receive their payment by the end of the year. Individuals can receive up to $1,200 and married couples can receive up to $2,400. People with qualifying children under age 17 at the end of 2019 can get up to an additional $500 for each qualifying child. The letters are being sent to people who haven't filed a return for either 2018 or 2019. So you'll remember the rules for this thing. They were taking a look at this economic impact payment is tied to 2020, but they looked at it. They want to send it out early. So they're going to be basing it on the prior tax return, which would have been 2019. But if that tax return had not been filed, they will look back to 2018. If you hadn't filed 2019 or 2018, then they wouldn't have the tax information. They may still have some information based on some people, based on government programs that they're receiving benefits from, such as Social Security, may still have sent out the economic impact payments in those cases. But in the cases where we don't have a 2018 or they don't have a 2018 return or 2019 return, they don't have any information with regards to the payments to these individuals with programs like Social Security and whatnot. They might not have the information needed to process the economic impact payment, and therefore that's who they're reaching out to at this point. Based on an internal analysis, these are people who don't typically have a tax return filing requirement because they appear to have very low incomes based on Form W-2s, 1099s, and other third-party statements available to the IRS. So they're looking at some of the statements they have, and they might have some W-2s and 1099s and whatnot for these individuals, be saying, hey, why these people didn't file their tax return? Why didn't they? Well, possibly because the W-2s that they have are below the threshold for which they would need to file, or the 1099s they have are below the threshold for the taxable income. That's the assumption that will be made, considering the fact that they didn't receive a tax return from these individuals, and they might have some information such as 1099 information and W-2 information for some amount of income. Therefore, they have, it looks like you would think, well, they got the billing address and whatnot on the W-2s and the 1099 forms now. They don't have the tax return. They're not paying Social Security, Medicare to these people. You would think, otherwise they would already be there. They would already be taken care of. They would have sent out a payment for them. So they have the mailing address, so they might be using that information in order to send out letters to these individuals to say, hey, you might want to file for the economic impact payment if you're in that situation. But many in this group are still eligible to receive the economic impact payment. Quote, the IRS has made an unprecedented outreach effort to make sure people who are aware of their potential eligibility for an economic impact payment this year, end quote, said IRS Commissioner Chuck Reddick. Quote, millions don't normally file a tax return, have already registered and received a payment. We are taking this extra step to help Americans who may not know they could be eligible for this payment or don't know how to register for one. People who aren't required to file a tax return can quickly register on IRS.gov and still get their money this year, end quote. So in other words, they're saying, hey, look, if you didn't file a tax return, we may have taken care of you. Hopefully we did, because you would have then received a payment based on any other benefits you might have gotten, like Social Security benefits. But if you don't fall into that category, then you'd have to tell the IRS that you qualify, and you can do that on the IRS website. They extended the deadline to be able to do that, so you can do that there, and it's going to be easier to do that there, because if you don't do it there, then you're going to need to file your tax return in order to do it, and these people don't file tax returns, and that would be more difficult to file the tax return. So it would be a lot easier to pick up the economic impact payments in this format without actually having to file the tax return or wait until you would have to do that, which would be filing the tax return for 2020 by April 2021. So the letter, officially known as the IRS Notice 1444A, is written in English and Spanish and includes information on eligibility criteria and how eligible recipients can claim an economic impact payment on IRS.gov. The mailing, which will begin around September 24th, will be delivered from an IRS address. To help address fraud concern, a copy of the letter, there's a link to it here, is available on IRS.gov. If those receiving letters haven't done so already, this letter urges eligible individuals to register by October 15th for a payment by using the free non-filers interpayment info tool available in English and Spanish only on IRS.gov. So the date, October 15th, remember they pushed that date out because they wanted this information, at some point in the past. They pushed it out to October 15th. So that's it. That's the date now. It doesn't look like they're going to push it out anymore since they've done it like a few times now. But this is it. That's the deadline. So you want to do it by then. Otherwise, you'd have to file your tax return again, which means you'd have to wait till after the year to file your 2020 tax return and 2021. And again, if you don't normally file, that would be more difficult, more work to do. So more than 7 million people have used the non-filer tools so far to register for a payment. Those unable to access the non-filer tool may submit a simplified paper return following the procedures described in the Economic Impact Payment Frequently Asked Questions FAQs on IRS.gov. The IRS reminds recipients that receiving a letter is not a guarantee of eligibility for an economic impact payment. An individual is likely eligible if he or she is a U.S. citizen or resident alien, has a work eligible Social Security number, and can't be claimed as dependent on someone else's federal tax return. So note that if you get the letter, someone gets this letter, then it's likely that the IRS has some piece of information, but not enough information to send out the economic impact payments. Otherwise, they would have done so, right? So they just have some piece of information, like the mailing address of a straight 1099, a W-2. They got the mailing address. They know this individual's there and where to send a letter to, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they qualify for the economic impact payment. It looks like on their end, on the IRS's side, that they may, considering the fact that they got this documentation for them and they don't have a tax return, it may not be filing, or this individual may not be receiving any kind of benefits like Social Security and whatnot. Because if they did, they would have taken care of the economic impact payment already. They would have processed it. So back to the text. However, there can be a variety of situations that could affect an individual's eligibility. For more information on eligibility requirements, recipients should read the Economic Impact Payment Eligibility FAQs, frequently asked questions, on IRS.gov. The registration deadline for non-filers to claim an economic impact payment through the non-filer tool is October 15, 2020. People can also wait until next year and claim it as a credit on their 2020 federal income tax return by filing in 2021. So again, if you missed the deadline, you could still claim the credit because it's really tied to the 2020 tax return, but you'd have to wait till the following year to do that. And again, if you don't file a tax return, it would be more work to do that because you'd actually have to file the tax return. It'd be an easy return to file. You'd probably do it for free using free sources, possibly on the IRS website, but more work than just telling the IRS the information they need without filing a tax return, I would imagine. So the IRS emphasizes that anyone required to file either a 2018 or 2019 tax return should file the tax return and not use the non-filer tool. So note the IRS has this stray information, a W-2, a 1099. They're assuming that because these people didn't file a 2018 or 2019 tax return, they're not getting any other benefit payments, that their income is below the threshold at which they would need to require the tax return to file the tax return. However, of course, that may not be the case, right? They may be required to file the tax return, but just didn't. And in that case, the IRS is saying, don't use the non-filer tool because you're going to confuse the IRS if you do that, right? Because then they're going to have in their records that you're not required to file, because that's basically what it means if you use that tool. So they're saying, hey, if you didn't file the 2018 and 2019 tax return, then you file the 2018 and 2019 tax return. And note that if you haven't filed, you're not required to file, you still may want to file the tax return because you may get some money back from the W-2. They may have withheld some money, so you might want to file even if it's a little amount. And if you had any earned income, You could possibly be subject to the earned income credit or possibly child tax credit, which would be refundable credits, so you could actually get more money than the withholdings on the W-2 if you filed the tax return. So it might be worth looking into. So don't wait. Non-filers can still get a payment. Must act by October 15th. Though most Americans, more than 160 million in all, have already received their economic impact payments, the IRS reminds anyone with little or no income who is not required to file a tax return that they may be eligible to receive an economic impact payment. This is true regardless of whether they get a letter. Quote, "Time is running out this year for the IRS to issue payments," end quote, Reddick said. Quote, "People who normally don't file a tax return shouldn't wait to see if they receive one of these letters. They can review the guidelines and register now if they're eligible," end quote. Available in both English and Spanish, the non-filer tool is designed for people with incomes typically below $24,400 for married couples, $12,200 for singles. That's usually what it would be below, because if you're below those amounts, you're basically below the point where you're going to have taxable tax on the income. So this is going to be the income levels below that point. So this includes couples and individuals who are experiencing homelessness. So homelessness, again, if you're below that point on the income threshold, then this might be a filing chance to do without filing the actual tax return. So people can qualify for a payment even if they don't work or have no earned income. But low and moderate income workers and working families eligible to receive special tax benefits such as the earned income tax credit or child tax credit cannot use this tool. So again, if you're going to get these two credits, earned income credit, child tax credits, those are refundable credits, meaning you might get some money beyond the point where you put money in, meaning you're not actually paying taxes there, you'd be getting a benefit. So if you have any filings, W-2 income, any earned income, even if it's below the threshold, the $24,400, $12,200, you may want to file, because you may qualify not only to get the money back that was withheld out of the W-2, which may be minimal, but also be qualified for these credits like the earned income credit and child tax credit, which could be material. So, worth looking into. So they will need to file a regular return as soon as possible. The IRS will use their tax return information to determine and issue any EIP, economic impact payment, for which they are eligible. Anyone using the non-filer tool can speed up the arrival of their payment by choosing to receive it by direct deposit. Those not choosing this option will get a check. Beginning 2 weeks after they register, people can track the status of their payment using the Get My Payment tool, available only on IRS.gov. Watch out for scams. So obviously the IRS is really looking to just give out money here, which is great, but obviously there could be, and most likely will, and certainly are, scammers out there trying to take advantage of this. So watch out for scams. The IRS urges everyone to be on the lookout for scams related to economic impact payments. In particular, watch out for scams using email, phone calls, or texts related to these payments. Be careful and cautious. The IRS will not send unsolicited electronic communications asking people to open attachments, visit a website, or share personal or financial information. So, and most of these emails obviously will be have an urgency to them. They'll say, hey, you got to respond to this link, or you got to talk to me right now and give me some information so that I can process your economic impact payment. The deadline's coming up right now. That's not how the IRS is a bureaucracy. They won't do that. They won't just, tell you you have to respond, within this time, or have a link in the email or something like that, or say, an urgent phone call that you have to, you have to respond to. So obviously, if you get a phone call or anything like that on these economic impact payments, I would say, thanks for your time. I'm going to hang up on you, and I'm going to call the IRS directly, go directly to the website, and then get the information from the source. Same with the emails, right? So just don't click a link on the email, but go to the website itself, and then go from there. So remember, going directly and solely to IRS.gov for official information. Particular, both the non-filer tool and the Get My Payment tool are available exclusively on IRS.gov. They are not available on any other website. For more information on the economic impact payment, including updated answers to frequently asked questions and other resources, visit IRS.gov/coronavirus. There's a link to that here. There'll be a link to this in the description.